Okay, we're back. I'm about to refute the Friedman Doctrine with a single meme, or meme, depending on how you pronounce it. Let me pull it up right here. Apologize for the technical difficulties. You may have heard of Pharma Bro, Martin Shkreli, the CEO of Turing Pharmaceuticals, who's now in federal prison on some unrelated tax fraud charges. Right? This guy is probably one of the most despised persons generally in all of America, right? But if you think about it, Martin Shkreli is the personification of the Friedman Doctrine. So there has to be something going on, right? There has to be something incomplete with the Friedman Doctrine. And don't get me wrong, I'm a big free market guy myself and very sympathetic, but let me tell you an alternate powerful theory of business ethics is why I actually justify tacking on these videos to the end. The alternate theory I will tell you is a little bit vague and amorphous. It's often called corporate social responsibility or CSR. My problem with, and the basic idea of CSR is that, companies do have a broader obligation to not just make money, but be ethical enterprises. My problem with that theory, I'm going to be totally honest with you, is without a theory of ethics, what is ethical? What is right and wrong? That's why I spent a lot of time in this course talking about virtue ethics, duty ethics, and consequentialism, and applying that to the moral status of animals, right? If your view of ethics is just consequentialism, then why do we need a separate theory of corporate social responsibility? My other criticism of CSR is that, look at companies like, Enron, that was a complete disaster. Companies that engaged in controversial lines of businesses alleged to contribute to climate change, like Exxon. These companies had or continue to have these very powerful corporate social responsibility statements. But what does that translate into reality? Think of Starbucks. Starbucks is my favorite example. I love, or before the pandemic, when you can actually go to Starbucks and sit down and get work done. I would love to get a macchiato, espresso macchiato. Starbucks has this ethical sourcing campaign that they buy their coffee beans from farmers or coffee farmers that pay their workers a living wage, a decent wage. But I noticed when Starbucks, and I'm all for that, and I'm willing to pay more, for that type of coffee. But I did notice that when around the time Starbucks began its ethical sourcing campaign, that's when they raised the price of my espresso macchiato by 5 or 15 cents, whatever it was. Again, I'm totally willing to pay that, but I'm just saying. So are you really being ethical if you're just passing the cost to the consumer? All right. So what I want to do here, though, is not criticize CSR so much. Although I find it very vague and maddeningly unhelpful, as to provide you the most powerful and defensible version of corporate social responsibility. And that's what I'm going to do now. The most powerful version of corporate social responsibility is going to be the stakeholder theory. And this is powerful, very influential. You really need to know the stakeholder theory. I really want you to know this. The stakeholder theory is, look, a company is not just the owners, right? Friedman is saying, Friedman Doctrine, maximize the benefits to the owners, right? Maximize profits. What stakeholder theory says, look, in addition to the owners, identify who the other stakeholders are. Who are the other people, constituencies, groups that the company does business with, or that company decisions might affect? Beginning with the customers or the user base, if it's an online platform. Beginning, with your workers, employees. This is a very powerful theory, So take into account all of your stakeholders, and then when you make a decision, what you want to do is stop, reflect, figure out how that decision would affect your stakeholders, and then act accordingly. Now, I'm going to give you a very powerful manifestation of the stakeholder theory. I want to give you a visualization of this theory. So if you will allow me to do that here, and I do apologize that I lost the image here since I'm working here. I'm not very technologically adept. It's one of the things, as we move to online education. But check this out.
Donald Trump says he spent Thanksgiving Day
Oops.
at work.
I see what happened. This forwarded, so I apologize for that. Let me see if I can go back.
On RTV6, working for you, getting answers for that major decision by Carrier to relocate to Mexico. Tonight, the apparent frontrunner for the Republican Party is making promises to Hoosiers that those jobs will stay on the West Side if he's elected.
I just wanted to share with you Donald J. Trump. One of the reasons why, a lot of commentators say he won the presidential election in 2016 is because, he stood up for workers, right? He told companies like Ford Motor Company, Carrier, that builds these air conditioning units, right? He told them, you have to stay in the USA. You have to protect your workers, right? That's what I mean by the stakeholder theory. It's not necessarily liberal. It's not necessarily conservative, right? It's just, it's not just about making money. It's about taking into account your other stakeholders as well. And what other stakeholder, beginning with your employees. I just wanted to dramatize to you what I mean by the stakeholder theory. All right. With that, what I'm going to do, I'll do a separate, because I was a little bit fumbling here, I apologize. I'll do a separate wrap-up video with some criticisms of the stakeholder theory, and then wrap up the course.